Amara was a young girl who lived in a small fishing village near the wide blue coast. Every day she watched the fishermen sail their wooden boats into the deep waters, bringing back baskets full of fish. She had always admired the sea, its colors, its sounds, and its life. To Amara, the sea was both a friend and a mystery. Sometimes it was calm and playful, its waves rolling softly on the shore. Other times it was wild and strong, crashing against rocks with power that no one could stop. On this day, Amara decided to take a small wooden boat by herself. She wanted to see the sea beyond the village, away from the usual shore where she always stood. The boat was old but strong enough to carry her across the gentle waves. She held the wooden oar tightly, her heart full of courage but also a little fear. She felt the wind touch her face and the salty air fill her lungs. For a while, everything seemed peaceful. The sky was blue, the sun was bright, and the water sparkled like glass. But the sea could change quickly. As Amara paddled further, the clouds began to gather. They were dark and heavy, moving fast across the sky. The sun that had shone so warmly disappeared behind the gray cover. The air grew colder and the waves began to rise higher than before. Amara's hands tightened on the oar, but her heart started to beat faster. She could feel the boat shaking beneath her as the wind pushed it side to side. The sea roared louder and louder as if it was angry. The waves slapped against the sides of the boat, spilling cold water inside. Amara tried to stay calm, but her arms were weak compared to the power of the storm. She cried out, hoping someone from the village could hear her, but the wind swallowed her voice. The boat rocked harder, tilting dangerously. Her hair stuck to her wet face and her eyes filled with fear. One huge wave came crashing over the side of the boat and that was the end. The small wooden boat overturned, throwing Amara into the deep water. She felt the shock of the cold sea all around her. It pulled her down, twisting her body in its dark grip. She tried to kick her legs to push upward but the water was too strong. Her lungs screamed for air. Bubbles escaped from her mouth as she fought to survive. The world under the water looked strange and endless. Light from above was fading and the sea grew darker. Her arms moved slowly, weaker with every second. She thought of her village, of her family, of the shore she might never see again. Her heart pounded but her body grew heavy. Just as her hope began to fade, something changed. A figure appeared beneath her, moving swiftly through the water. At first, Amara thought she was dreaming. The figure seemed to glow faintly as though the sea itself was lighting his path. Strong hands reached for her, steady and sure. She felt herself being lifted, carried upward toward the surface. Though her vision was blurry, she could see something unusual. Scales shimmered faintly on the figure's arms, glowing in shades of blue and green. His eyes shone with a strange light, unlike anything she had seen among her people. Amara wanted to ask who he was, but no words came. Her breath was almost gone, her body too tired to fight. She let herself be carried, trusting the strength that held her. The sound of waves faded in her ears as she felt her mind grow quiet. Before darkness took her, she saw one last flash, a long fin moving powerfully through the water, and a face both human and otherworldly, looking at her with calm and steady eyes. When Amara opened her eyes again, she was lying on warm sand. The storm was gone. The sky above was soft with light, the sun beginning to break through the clouds. The sea still moved in waves, but they were calmer now, like a mother rocking her child to sleep. Amara coughed, water spilling from her mouth as she breathed deeply. Her body trembled, but she was alive. Slowly she turned her head and there he was. Beside her stood a figure unlike any she had seen before. He was tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. His hair, dark and wet, fell across his shoulders, but what caught her breath were his eyes, clear and glowing like the sea at dawn. At his sides, faint scales still glimmered as drops of water slid down. Though his legs were now hidden in the sand, Amara was sure of what she had seen in the water, a long, powerful tail. He looked at her with calmness, his face gentle yet strong. Amara's heart pounded as she realized who he was. He was not just a man. He was not just a rescuer. He was the Mermaid Prince, the guardian of the waters, a figure of stories whispered in her village. Amara sat up slowly, her hands pressed into the sand. Her voice shook as she tried to speak, but no words came. The prince only gave her a small nod as if to say she was safe now. The sea behind him sparkled again as though it had been waiting for this moment. She could hardly believe it. The Mermaid Prince had saved her life. And her story with him was only beginning. The figure looked at Amara with steady eyes. His presence was calm, yet there was something powerful about him, something that made her heart race. He leaned closer and in a voice deep but gentle he spoke. "My name is Tay," he said. The sound of his words was strange, yet she understood him clearly. His voice carried both kindness and authority, as though he had spoken to both waves and kings. Amara sat silently, her body trembling from the storm, but her heart slowly calmed. She felt the strength in his words, like the strength she had felt in his arms when he carried her out of the sea. Tay explained softly that she had drifted far from the village shore. The storm had pulled her deeper into the sea than she realized, and without help she would never have returned. His eyes held hers as he spoke. There was no pride in his words, only truth. He did not boast about saving her. He simply wanted her to understand the danger she had faced. Amara whispered, her voice shaky, "You saved me." Tay gave a small nod. "Yes, but the sea chose to spare you as well. You must be careful, Amara. Humans are not always welcome where the waves rule." Her eyes widened. You know my name?" A small smile touched his lips. "The sea carries many whispers. I listen." For a long moment, Amara did not know what to say. The storm was gone, the beach was quiet, yet the world around her felt new, like a dream she could not wake from. She looked at Tay again. His scales still glimmered faintly where the sunlight touched his arms. She wanted to ask more, but before she could, he turned his gaze toward the water. "Come," he said softly. "There is something you must see." Amara hesitated. The sea had nearly taken her life only moments ago. The thought of stepping into it again made her chest tighten. But there was something in his voice that gave her courage. Slowly she stood. Tay extended his hand. His touch was cool, smooth and steady like the current itself. She placed her hand in his, and together they walked toward the edge of the water. The waves lapped gently at their feet, almost as if they knew who he was. Amara felt the pull of the sea around her, but she did not resist. With Tay guiding her, she stepped deeper. Soon the water reached her knees, then her waist and then her shoulders. She wanted to gasp, but her body stayed calm. His hand never left hers. And then, something extraordinary happened. The water did not choke her, nor did it drown her. She felt air fill her lungs even as she sank beneath the surface. A shimmer of light wrapped around her, soft and warm, like a protective shield. Amara's eyes widened in wonder. She could breathe. "Do not fear," Tay said, his voice clear even under the water. "You are safe with me." Together they sank deeper, the surface of the sea growing distant above them. Amara's eyes darted around, and what she saw left her speechless. All around her, the ocean came alive with color. Coral glowed in shades of gold, purple and green, shining like lanterns in the dark water. Fish of every size darted past, their scales reflecting light like tiny stars. A school of silver fish moved together in perfect circles, glittering as they swam around her. Strange plants swayed gently with the current, their leaves long and delicate, their tips glowing faintly like fireflies. In the distance, large shapes moved slowly, shadows of creatures Amara had only heard of in stories. A giant turtle glided past them, its shell marked with ancient lines, its eyes deep and calm. Amara gasped in wonder, though no bubbles left her lips. She turned to Tay, her face full of awe. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Tay's eyes softened. "This is the world beneath the waves. Few humans have seen it. Fewer still have lived to tell of it." Amara turned slowly, trying to take in every detail. The light, the life, the mystery, it was like stepping into another world. Yet as the beauty filled her, a small shiver of fear ran through her. This was not a place meant for her kind. She was a visitor, a stranger. What if the sea decided she did not belong? Tay seemed to sense her fear. He moved closer and spoke gently. "You must understand, Amara. The sea holds secrets. Many are not meant for human eyes. Our meeting today must remain between us. If others knew, they would not understand. Some would fear, some would try to harm." Amara nodded slowly. She understood his warning. She thought of her village, of the stories whispered around fires about merfolk who lured sailors away. If she told them what she had seen, they would call her a liar, or worse, bring danger to him. "Then I will keep it secret," she said firmly. Tay looked at her with approval. "Good. You are safe under my watch. But remember, not all who dwell in the sea share my trust. Some would see you as a threat, a trespasser. You must be careful always." His words sank deep into her heart. Amara felt both wonder and fear at the same time. She wanted to stay to see more of this hidden world, but she also knew the danger was real. Still, she felt no danger from him. With Tay, she felt safe, as if the sea itself had chosen her to see its secrets. They drifted slowly past the glowing corals and curious fish. Every moment filled her with awe. She touched the water plants, and they curled gently at her fingers as though alive. She laughed softly, a sound she did not think possible under the water. Tay watched her with quiet eyes. Though he said little, his presence spoke more than words. He was a guardian, a protector, and yet there was something more, something human in the way he looked at her. Finally, Tay guided her back toward the shore. The shimmering shield around her began to fade as her feet touched the sand again. The air felt strange after breathing water, but she was grateful for it. She turned back to the waves, her heart torn between fear and wonder. Tay's voice came once more, steady and calm. "Remember, Amara. The sea has many eyes. But as long as I live, no harm will come to you." Amara nodded, her chest full of emotions she could not name. She had seen a world beyond her dreams. She had met the Mermaid Prince. And she had promised to keep his secret. The waves rolled gently at her feet as though sealing her promise. In the days that followed the storm, Amara could not stop thinking about what she had seen. The colors of the coral, the strange glow of the plants, and the calm eyes of Tay stayed in her mind. Even as she worked in her village, carrying baskets or helping her neighbors, her thoughts drifted back to the sea. At night, she dreamed of swimming freely, surrounded by silver fish that sparkled like stars. Every morning she woke with the same longing. One evening as the sun dipped low, Amara walked back to the beach. The waves moved gently as if waiting. She stood on the sand for a long while, unsure if Tay would appear again. Just as she thought she had imagined everything, the water rippled and there he was. The Mermaid Prince rose from the waves, his scales catching the last light of the sunset. "You came back," Tay said, his voice carrying both surprise and warmth. Amara nodded, her heart racing. I wanted to thank you again. And I wanted to see if it was real." Tay gave a small smile. "The sea is always real, Amara. But many choose not to see it." That night they spoke for a long time. Amara told him about her village, about the people who worked hard but still struggled. She spoke of her parents who had died when she was young, and how she had learned to be strong on her own. She shared her small dreams, how she wanted to one day own a little boat so she could fish for herself, or maybe start a small stall by the shore. Tay listened quietly. He asked gentle questions not just about her struggles, but also about what made her smile. Amara found herself speaking more than she expected. Somehow it felt easy to talk to him. He did not judge or laugh at her. He simply listened, and in his eyes she felt her words had value. In return, Tay shared little pieces of his world. He told her about the great coral forests where merfolk lived, the caves filled with glowing stones, and the songs they sang that echoed for miles under the sea. He spoke of the laws of the merfolk, of how they guarded the oceans from harm. Yet, as his voice grew softer, he also gave a warning. "Not all of my people would welcome you, Amara," he said. "Some believe humans bring only trouble. They see your fishing nets, the waste thrown into the water, and the ships that cut the sea. They fear humans and some even hate them." Amara lowered her head, ashamed. "They're not wrong. Many in my village do not think about what the sea gives us. They only take." Tay studied her face. "But you are different. You care. That is why the sea let me find you." Her cheeks warmed at his words, though she did not fully understand what he meant. She only knew that his belief in her filled her heart with quiet strength. From that day, Amara began to return often. At first, she came carefully, afraid someone might see her talking to a figure in the waves. She waited until the shore was empty, when the fishermen had left and children no longer played in the sand. Then, when the sun dipped or the moon rose, she walked to the water's edge and Tay would appear. Each meeting was different. Sometimes they shared stories. She told him about planting yams or about the market women calling out their prices, and he told her about whales that carried songs older than any man, or about dolphins that raced beside the tides like playful children. Sometimes they laughed. Amara laughed when he tried to repeat village proverbs in her language, and he laughed when she tried to imitate the way merfolk swam with ease. Other times they simply sat in silence, listening to the waves crash and the wind whistle. Little by little, a bond grew between them. Amara felt as if she had found a friend who saw her for who she was, not just a poor girl from the village. Tay too seemed different with her, less like a prince, more like someone longing to understand another world. Yet always the shadow of danger lingered. One evening as the moon shone bright on the waves, Amara asked softly, "Why must this be a secret? Why can't your people know about me? Why can't my people know about you?" Tay's face grew serious. "Because fear changes hearts, Amara. Your people would fear us and mine would fear you. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to harm. The sea cannot allow that." Amara looked out at the water. But if they knew you as I do, they would not fear. He shook his head slowly. Not everyone has your heart. Her chest grew heavy at his words. She wanted to believe there could be peace, that the beauty she had seen could be shared, but deep down she knew he was right. Her village, though kind in many ways, was also full of fear for anything unknown. She had heard them whisper tales of sea spirits that dragged sailors down. If they learned of Tay, they would not welcome him. They would run, or worse, they would fight. Still, she could not help herself. Each time she left him, she counted the hours until she could return. And each time she returned, her heart grew lighter. She found herself smiling more, even when she was working hard in the village. When people asked why, she simply said she loved the sea. The more she met Tay, the more she began to notice the small things about him. The way his eyes glowed faintly when the moonlight hit them. The way his voice grew softer when he spoke of the ocean's songs. The way his laughter rolled like the tide itself. She knew he was not like her, but she also knew that something strong was forming between them, something even the sea could not hide. And though both of them understood the risk, neither could stop themselves. In the quiet hours by the shore, between the rise and fall of waves, Amara and Tay built a bond that belonged to no world but their own. A bond of stories, of laughter, and of silence. A bond neither expected, but one both cherished deeply. One evening, Amara walked to the beach as she always did. The sun had dipped low, leaving the sky painted with streaks of gold and purple. The waves whispered softly, and she felt a familiar peace as her bare feet sank into the cool sand. She waited, listening to the sea. She knew Tay would appear as he always did. Her heart warmed at the thought. But that night was different. When the water stirred, it was not Tay who rose first. Instead, several dark figures emerged from beneath the waves. Their scales shimmered in the dim light, and their eyes glowed with suspicion. They carried long spears made from coral and shells, sharp and strong. Amara froze in fear. These were not friendly eyes watching her. The merfolk guards stepped closer to the shore, circling her like hunters. Their voices were sharp as they spoke in their language, then switched to words she could understand. "Who is this human?" one demanded. "Why does she stand here at the edge of our kingdom?" Another guard pointed his spear at her. "Humans are not welcome in our waters. They poison the sea. They steal from it. She must be taken away before she brings danger." Amara's heart pounded. She tried to step back, but her legs felt heavy. She wanted to explain, but the words would not come. For the first time, she realized how small she was compared to them, how powerless she would be if they chose to drag her beneath the waves. Then from the water behind them, Tay appeared. His scales shone faintly, and his voice cut through the anger of the guards. "Enough," he said firmly. The guards turned to him in surprise. "Prince Tay, you defend this human?" one asked, his tone sharp. Tay swam closer, placing himself between Amara and the spears. His eyes burned with quiet strength. "Yes," he said. "She is under my protection. She has done no harm. She is not like the others you fear." The guards exchanged uneasy looks. One shook his head. "You break our laws, my prince. Humans are not to know of us. They are not to walk freely near our kingdom." They did not move. "She has not walked freely into our world. She has only stood at the shore. She has not harmed the sea. And I will not let you treat her as an enemy." The guards bristled at his defiance. They argued loudly, their words rolling like thunder across the waves. One declared that this was treason, another that the elders must be told. Amara stood frozen, her breath quick and shallow. She had never felt so exposed. Yet even in her fear, she felt awe as she watched Tay stand tall, his body strong, his voice steady. He was not just a friend to her now. He was a shield. Within moments, the water around them stirred again. More figures emerged, older and grander than the guards. Their scales were silver and deep blue, their eyes wise but stern. These were the merfolk elders, the keepers of the sea's law. Their presence made even the guards bow their heads. The leader of the elders spoke, his voice calm but heavy. "What is this? A human standing at our edge? Prince Tay, you know our rules." Tay turned to face them, his back still protecting Amara. His voice was respectful but firm. "Yes, I know. But I ask you to listen before you judge. This human is Amara. She is not an enemy. She is my friend." The elder's eyes narrowed. "A friend?" one asked with disbelief. "You risk the safety of our people for a human?" The guards pressed closer, eager to see what would happen. Amara felt the weight of every eye on her. Her chest tightened, but she stayed still, trusting Tay to speak. Tay lifted his chin. "I ask you to remember a time before this. Some moons ago I was wounded near the shore. The fishing net had caught me and I was weak. It was Amara who found me. She could have called others. She could have left me. But she did not. She cut the net. She helped me heal. She kept my secret. The elders exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from suspicion to curiosity. Tay continued, his voice steady. And then, when the storm struck, I found her drowning. I could have turned away, but I remembered her kindness. So I saved her. I brought her to safety. This bond between us is not one of danger. It is one of respect. She honored me once, and I honored her in return. Can we not see that kindness flows both ways from land to sea? For a moment, silence filled the night. The waves lapped gently at the shore as if waiting for the elder's answer. Amara lowered her head. She wished she could speak, but her throat was too tight with fear. All she could do was stand close behind Tay and hope his words were enough. Finally, the elder leader spoke again. His voice was softer now. Prince Tay, your words carry truth. We do not ignore the acts of kindness, even from humans. But we cannot ignore our laws either. This girl cannot wander freely as if she belongs to the sea. Tay bowed his head slightly. I do not ask for that. I ask only that she be allowed to go free, unharmed. Let her live as she has always lived. She has promised no harm to us. And I believe her heart speaks truth. The elders studied Amara then, their glowing eyes searching her face. For the first time she found the courage to speak. Her voice trembled, but her words were clear. I will not harm the ocean, she said. I promise. I love it. I love its beauty, its strength. I would never bring it pain. The leader of the elders nodded slowly. Then so it shall be. Human girl, you are free. But remember this night. The sea watches you. Break your promise and it will turn against you. Relief washed over Amara like a warm wave. She bowed her head deeply, whispering her thanks. The guards lowered their spears, though some still looked uneasy. Slowly, the elders and guards slipped back into the sea, their forms vanishing into the deep until only the sound of waves remained. Amara turned to Tay, her eyes shining with gratitude. You stood for me, she whispered. Tay gave her a small, gentle smile. You stood for me once too. We are bound by that. Do not forget it. That night, as Amara walked back to her village, the moon followed her steps. Her heart was heavy with fear and wonder, but it was also filled with something stronger. The knowledge that she and Tay shared a bond the ocean itself had tested, and allowed to remain. Amara walked back to her village as the first light of dawn touched the sky. Her feet pressed into the wet sand, leaving behind small prints that the tide quickly washed away. Though her body was tired, her heart carried something heavier and brighter than she had ever known, memories of a world most people would never believe. The faces of the guards, the voices of the elders, and Tay's steady presence lingered in her mind. She knew she could not tell anyone what had happened. If she spoke, people might laugh at her, or worse, they might go searching for the merfolk and bring them harm. So she kept the secret tucked deep inside her, like a treasure hidden in her chest. Life in the village returned to its rhythm. The fishermen went out in their canoes, the women mended nets and prepared food, and the children played by the water's edge. Amara joined them, just as she always had, but her eyes had changed. Where others saw only waves, she saw a living world beneath. Where others saw only a place to fish, she saw a kingdom filled with voices, beauty, and danger. When she carried water from the stream, she thought of Tay's words. When she watched the fishermen pull their nets, she remembered his warning. She began to speak gently to her people, reminding them not to waste, not to throw broken things into the sea, not to take more fish than they needed. Some laughed at her seriousness, but others listened, noticing the quiet strength in her tone. Days passed, and then one evening, as the sun sank low and painted the ocean red and gold, the waves stirred in a familiar way. Amara's heart quickened. She walked down to the shore, and there he was, Tay, rising from the water with the calm grace that had always surrounded him. He did not come too close, for the sea still separated their worlds, but his eyes held the same warmth she remembered. In his hand he carried something small and glowing. "This is for you," he said, his voice carrying across the gentle waves. Amara stepped closer, the water lapping at her ankles. Tay reached out and placed a seashell charm in her palm. It glowed softly, as if a piece of the ocean's light had been captured inside. She held it tightly, her eyes wide with wonder. "What is it?" she asked, her voice trembling. "A reminder," Tay replied. "It will never lose its light, just as the bond between us will never fade. When you look at it, remember that the sea watches you, and so do I." Amara's throat tightened. She wanted to ask him to stay, to keep coming back, but deep down she knew it could not be. Their worlds were too different. He belonged to the endless waters and she belonged to the land. Still, the gift gave her comfort, as if part of him would remain with her forever. "Thank you," she whispered, her fingers curling around the seashell. "I will keep it safe." For a moment neither spoke. The waves moved gently, and the sky turned darker as stars appeared. Then Tay said, "This must be our last meeting, Amara. The elders watch me closely now, and they will not allow me to walk so freely near your world. But know this, I will remember you. I will remember the girl who saw more than the surface, the girl who treated the sea with respect." Amara's eyes filled with tears, though she tried to hold them back. "And I will remember you," she said softly. "The prince who saved me, the friend who showed me the beauty beneath the waves." They looked at each other for a long time, their silence carrying more than words could. Then, with one last gentle smile, Tay turned and slipped back into the water. His shimmering scales caught the starlight for a brief moment, and then he was gone, swallowed by the deep. Amara stood at the shore long after, holding the glowing shell close to her chest. The sea was quiet again, but she no longer felt afraid of its power. She felt connected to it, as if it had become part of her own heart. From that day forward, Amara lived differently. She became known in her village not just as a girl, but as someone who loved and protected the sea. When children played near the water, she taught them to treat it kindly. When fishermen prepared to cast their nets, she reminded them to respect what they took. Slowly, people began to notice that when they followed her advice, the sea seemed to give back more: calmer days, safer trips, better catches. They started to call her the sea's daughter, a name that made her smile quietly, though she never explained the truth behind it. She never told them about the prince or the glowing world beneath the waves. That secret remained hers alone, guarded like a sacred story in her heart. At night, when the stars shone above and the ocean stretched out dark and endless, she would sit by the shore and hold the seashell charm. Its soft glow reminded her that she was not alone. Somewhere, far beneath the surface, Tay was remembering her too. And deep in the ocean kingdom, the mermaid prince kept his word. He thought often of the human girl who had once saved him, the girl whose courage and kindness had built a bridge between two worlds. Though they were apart, her memory stayed with him, shaping the way he looked at humans. No longer did he see only danger. He also saw hope. Their story became more than just a memory. It became a silent promise carried by the waves, that kindness, even between the most different of beings, could change the way the world was seen. Amara lived her life with that promise in her heart, and the sea carried it in its endless song. And so the girl and the mermaid prince were bound forever, not by touch or by place, but by the quiet bridge of respect and love that neither time nor distance could ever wash away. The end.